Have you ever promised yourself to do something like reading a new book, starting a new habit, or finishing an important task, only to completely forget about it? Well, you probably felt motivated at the moment of telling yourself you'll do it, but motivation is not a guarantee for action. And this is what I'll call in this video pressing the try harder button. So what do I mean? When I say pressing the try harder button, this means relying on willpower or guilt or motivation to drive you towards taking action. So perhaps you have a deadline and you say, I'm going to do it. And your thought is that, well, the guilt of not doing it will push me to, in fact, complete the task. It feels like a right course of action in the moment, but it does not change what our future self will do. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that you tell a friend, let's meet up soon. And you really mean, genuinely, let's meet up at some point in the near future, but a few weeks passed and nobody has scheduled it. So every time that you remember, you feel kind of guilty. Oh, I haven't sent the invitation yet. So you're like, okay, I'm going to try a bit harder and it'll happen soon. But as this process continues, nothing changes. So the insight here is that if you were to jump 2 weeks into the future, would you be surprised that you did not yet send the invitation? And if you're not surprised that you didn't send the invitation, then this is a sign that you're pressing the try harder button and that you're relying on some increase miraculously in willpower, which will drive you to complete whatever action you intend. And what solution can we put in place in this situation? This is obviously to stop trusting motivation and build a system which will ensure that whatever action you intend is completed. So one thing that we can do is to set regular reminders, whether that be through a calendar, so that you don't have to rely on your memory somehow clutching up every time you need to do it. There's also to-do list apps, but the one thing that is important about a to-do list is that not only do you need to put things in your to-do list, but you also need to schedule a specific time where you clear items out of your to-do list. Because what I have always run in terms of a problem is a to-do list which is continuously expanding without shrinking, and this can be even more overwhelming than not having a to-do list in the first place. And thirdly, we cannot forget social pressures, and I mean a positive social pressure, which is to say, tell a friend. I would warn that this sometimes works and doesn't, because if you tell your friend you're going to do something and then it doesn't happen, that can make you even more guilty of not completing the action. So if you've done this before and it's successful, then do it. Otherwise, don't. And one thing that I always like to ask myself is, if not now, then when? Which is to say, if I don't do it right now, do I realistically think that I'll do it later? And one way which we can remedy this is via the 5-minute rule or 2-minute rule. There's many different ways of saying this simple thing, which is to do something right now and start in this moment, because everybody knows that the friction of starting is more difficult than continuing once you're in the task. That is to say, the hardest part is to get started, and perhaps writing an essay is not really applicable to the 5-minute rule because it will take more than 5 minutes regardless. But if there's like an email you need to send or something like that, then this rule is really effective, because once you've completed the 5 minutes, then if you've done the task, it gives you satisfaction and allows you to move on to the next thing while reducing something from your to-do list. I've said this in previous videos as well, but in our system, we need our tasks to be concrete and actionable. So instead of saying work on project in your task list, instead say write the first paragraph of my report on Monday morning after eating breakfast, something like that. Or instead of saying read every day, you can say once I brush my teeth and I'm sitting in bed, I'll read 5 pages before I turn off the light and go to sleep. So this is a method to ensure that your actions are more successful in the sense that it's well defined and not ambiguous. Something which is rather extreme is to say that if it's not scheduled, it's not going to happen. And this is not always true, but it's definitely true that if it is scheduled, the likelihood of it happening is better. So you can just have a time block in your Google Calendar, whatever you use, which will give you a reminder 10 minutes before it starts that you have 30 minutes now to do your weekly review or whatever it may be. And this will drive you or steer you towards doing the action. Of course, it's not a guarantee, but it doesn't hurt. In closing, I want you to try for one day or even for the next 30 minutes to notice if there's a situation where you are trying harder, pressing the try harder button. That's to say, perhaps you're going to complete a task, but you're saying, okay, I'm going to leave it for today, and tomorrow I'm going to complete it and everything will be fine. Just delaying tomorrow. We all know that this from previous experience is not successful. And once you realize this, then you can apply techniques such as adding this to your to-do list or adding this into a calendar block, such that during 30-minute time or even a 5-minute rule block, you can work towards completing this task. So which of these strategies do you think would work best for you? If there is one in particular, please let me know in the comments, or maybe there's something else that I didn't mention and we can learn from each other. Thanks.